Let's dive into the mailbag. Jaylen Brown was getting booed all over the place at the All-Star game. Is he the villain now? Also, why hasn't Larry Bird been around the Celtics? Do we get back any of the old Boston Celtics next season? And the little things the players do that amaze me. It's all right now on the Lockdown Celtics podcast.
Be ever ready. Recognize the city of champs. Boston, baby, we do what you can't. Locked on number 18, Tatum and Brown, J-team, step back. We gon' wet that and slay teams. Of course, the Celtics, who else could it be? Screaming like KG with the Larry O.B. Karalis above average, assessing the team status. Best daily pod, no cap, salary matching. Clutch like Bird the DJ, keep John on replay. Prime time, dapping up the truth on the sideline. Raining J's, how it started, raising banners, how we finished. Locked on Celtics pod, home of the winners. B.
Hey there, welcome back to the Lockdown Celtics podcast. It's right here on the Lockdown Podcast Network where it's your team every day. Your team is the Boston Celtics, and I've got it covered Monday through Friday, plus bonus podcasts on the weekends when they play, like a Saturday night game in New York. I will be in New York podcasting from New York City, so make sure that you're subscribed, become an everydayer. Join me on this journey towards maybe Banner 18. I'm John Karalis. I used to play a long time ago. Now I cover the Celtics for Boston Sports Journal and for you, because we do this all for you, the Celtics fan. Today we're getting into a mailbag. Lots of questions, as always, which you can get when you email me or go to johnkaralis.com/mailbag. johnkaralis.com/mailbag. That's the only place I accept questions. johnkaralis.com/mailbag. I'll get into some of the amazing little things players do later on. I'll get into potential for postseason awards for these guys, getting back some former Celtics, whatever. Today's show brought to you by Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA. Use the code LockedOnNBA, all lowercase, for a first deposit match up to $100. Let's get into it. Brian said, time and time again, we've seen Jaylen get booed. Draft night did not welcome him. He got booed in Indy during the dunk contest. He's been booed in rival games. I can't help but wonder, why is he disliked by NBA fans, assuming it's not Boston fans that are booing him? Okay, and do you think Jaylen would do well if he were to embrace his villain-type hate? No. Let me answer that. No, he's not Dylan Brooks. He's not going to sit there and be like, embrace the hate. First of all, he's not a hateful person. I think Jaylen wants to spread love. He wants to, his off the court message is about equality. And I think he just wants everybody to, get along, love each other. And, regardless of who we are, where we come from, color of our skin, religion, any of that stuff, like that's a focus for him. And so I can never imagine him embracing a villain role. That's not what he wants to be, and that's not who he is. Go back to draft night. This is a pet peeve of mine, because he was not booed on draft night because fans were like, oh, boo, Jaylen Brown, we don't like him. Draft night was, people wanted a Jimmy Butler trade, and the thought was, if the Celtics were going to draft Chris Dunn, guard out of Providence, if they were going to draft Chris Dunn, it was because they were working on a trade to get Jimmy Butler. So it would have been Chris Dunn out, whatever, blah, 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 whatever series of picks, and Butler would have come in. But if they drafted Jaylen Brown, it was to keep him. I remember vividly, that was the report on draft night. So they drafted Jaylen Brown, but the fans wanted a winner now. They thought Jimmy Butler was going to be the guy to help lead them there. And so they booed the fact that the Celtics didn't make a trade. It comes off as they booed Jaylen Brown, but I don't think fans were booing, we don't want Jaylen Brown, boo, he sucks. No, I think they wanted a trade for Jimmy Butler, and that's why they booed on draft night. Why did Pacers fans boo? I assume there's a lot of Pacers people in that building. Well, obviously, they're going to boo rivals, right? So Celtics get booed. But also, he got booed at the dunk contest because that dunk that he did that was supposed to be an homage to D. Brown turned the entire court into the Celtics parquet. And imagine if, like, pick a popular player. If there was a player that you liked on another team, like say it was the Lakers or say it was the Knicks, pick a guy that you're like, he's benign, it's fine. But if he turns the Boston court, an LED court, into a rival's court, people would be, oh, boo, boo, I hate this. No, people don't want to see. Imagine an LED court being laid down in Boston, and all of a sudden it turned into the Knicks floor. People would lose their mind. If it turned into the Sixers floor, right? People would lose their mind. It doesn't matter who it was. People booed the fact that the Indiana Pacers building, and it was at the football field, but still, they were booing the fact that the Indiana home field turned into a Boston home court. And that was like, no, unacceptable. No. So people did not like that. So I disagree with the notion that Jaylen himself is getting booed. I think those are important points of clarification for why the boos happened when Jaylen Brown was introduced. Important stuff, because I don't think it's Jaylen. I think it was the situations. So, yeah. Malachi asks, do you agree with Stephen A. Smith's take that Jayson Tatum is the favorite for the NBA MVP? I heard Stephen A. talking about this. He's basically saying he's the best player on the best team. And even though his numbers aren't what they used to be, because he's taking a little bit of a step back so everybody can thrive, which is true, he's not going to put up the same types of numbers that other MVP candidates. So it's a good argument. I don't think he's the favorite necessarily at the moment, but that doesn't mean he can't be eventually, because of all those reasons. But you look at, obviously people are going to look at the points, right? Embiid had the fast track, but he's hurt. He's not going to get there. Depends on what, Milwaukee does. Giannis will have a chance. I feel like when it comes to overall, I think the overall feeling is that Jokic will have a strong chance to be the MVP again, because, and it depends on what Denver's ultimately doing. I know Denver hasn't been exactly lighting it up lately, but they're still 36-19. They're still pretty close. I think they're kind of coasting. They've lost a few games in a row. I think Jokic is probably the leader. You might get a push from Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. You might get a push, like I said, from Giannis. But I think Tatum is probably in that mix, like third, fourth, fifth right now. I think as the Celtics go on, if the Celtics continue to get to 60 wins and people start to look at it more closely and they go, maybe we need to be looking at that a little bit more closely. So I will say that I'd be a little bit surprised, considering how spread out the Celtics impact is, if it's Tatum. But I can also see, if the Celtics continue to make a push, that, hey, he best player, best team, that can be a real kind of momentum push for him. So not right now. Not right now. He's not the favorite for MVP. I still think it's Jokic, but I can see him making a push. Tom, before we get to break, Tom asks, why isn't Larry Bird involved with the Celtics at all? Obviously, Tatum met Bird over at All-Star Weekend, and it was this nice moment. I talked about it yesterday on the podcast. If you missed what Jason said afterwards, go listen to the podcast yesterday. I played his whole answer about meeting Larry Bird there on the podcast, so go check that out. Why isn't Larry Bird involved with the Celtics? Because he's been involved with the Pacers for the most part. He obviously, after his Celtics career was over, he went to Indiana. He became the head coach for a while. He became the president of basketball operations for a while. He stepped away, then he came back, and he's been serving as far as like in a advisory role to the team, like a consultant. So he's been involved with the Indiana Pacers. So it's not exactly, he's working for a different team. And he's never been one to I don't know, put importance on that kind of stuff. Like he said multiple times, and this was great. He said multiple times over the weekend, I love where the game is and all of that stuff. And he's forever going to be a Celtic. And I'm sure that when, the opportunity is there, he will take those opportunities, but he's not going to be around like Paul Pierce is around or any of the other legends have been around. Like he's his own guy. He wants these guys to do their own thing. He's kind of unique in that way. So, but the main reason, like he's currently a consultant with the Pacers. So that's not going to allow for him to do a lot to hang around the Celtics. And so that's that. And he's not actively going to seek out Tatum or Brown or anything like that. So if guys want to meet Larry Bird, they're going to have to make an effort. And that's not exactly front of mind. And Larry's his own dude, man. He's a weird guy sometimes. And I love him. But that's that. I'm not surprised. People are surprised that Jayson Tatum hadn't met Larry Bird up until that point. I'm like, I'm not shocked. I'm not shocked at all. So, all right, let's get back in a second here. We'll talk about the acquisition of Jaden Springer. Did they finesse the Sixers? We'll talk about getting former Celtics back, and we'll talk about the firing of Jacque Vaughn in Brooklyn. That's all coming up next. First, today's show is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks, daily fantasy made easy. The easiest, the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports because it's you against the projections. You pick more, you pick less. And if you do that correctly between 2 to 6 players on their stat projections that Prize Picks set, you can win money and you can win big. You can win up to 100 times your money right now because it's demon time on Prize Picks. Yeah, they've got these things, these demons and goblins. That's their new exciting way to play at Prize Picks. There are squares marked with red demons or green goblins, and they give you different payouts. So you can win up to 100 times your money. You put $10 down, you could win up to $1,000 with as few as 4 correct picks. So go check it out. You can play a bunch of different ways. They've got injury insurance on their picks. You can play multiple sports at the same time. Quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, a huge selection of players and stat types. And you can make your picks in seriously a couple of clicks. Boom, boom, boom. 60 seconds or less. You're all set. Doesn't take you all day. And it's worth the shot, man, because you can get up to $100 now in a first deposit match on top of 10 times your money. PrizePicks.com/LockedOnNBA. You can see it on the bottom of the screen here on the YouTube page, PrizePicks.com/LockedOnNBA. Use the code LockedOnNBA. That first deposit match, you deposit up to $100, they'll match it, and then you make the right picks on the demons and goblin squares. You can get up to 100 times your money. That's pretty good. So go check it out. Prize Picks. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Thank you for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. Go check out Locked On Sports today. It's the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. It's now available on Amazon Fire TV. All you got to do is find that free Fire TV channels app. Find Locked On Sports today. It's right there on your TV. You don't have to go to the YouTube. You just go right there on the free Fire TV channels app. You can find all the big stories, all our national shows. It's just a great way to get good, solid sports talk all day long, every day. So check it out. It's fun stuff. All right, get back to the mailbag. Max says, hi, I'm a fellow Celtics fan from Hong Kong. Love you, international fans. International fans, you're up at weird times watching these games. The commitment is real. He says, why did Jaden Springer get acquired for a second-round pick? He's very good defensively, and he's a young talent. Do you think the 76ers got finessed? Well, we'll see. I don't know that they got finessed necessarily. The Sixers believe that he has talent, but he's a longer range kind of project. The Celtics disagree on how long range the project is. And the Sixers are, we're in a situation where they wanted to create as much financial space as possible. So you look around, you say, hey, Jaden Springer, yeah, he's nice. He's a good defender. Obviously, he had everybody talked about how great those performances were against Steph Curry and who else? Somebody else. Forget off the top of my head, but he had a couple of great defensive. Luka Doncic. He had a great couple of defensive games there and really showed some promise. And but the Sixers are like, not enough. He's not a right now guy, and we don't have the time. We need to create as much cap space as possible. So next season, you can try to get players in or trade for players, somehow add to that roster, because you're running out of time with Joel Embiid. So as much as Jaden Springer might be good, and maybe the Celtics did finesse the Sixers, but the Sixers are like, yeah, it's a risk we're willing to take. Look at the Clippers with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. They wanted to take that risk. They gave up a young talent. Now, let me just be clear. Jaden Springer is not Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. But my point is, the Clippers gave up a young guy with potential to win now. And that was their choice. They wanted to build a team that was a win now team. Now, this is obviously nowhere near the same level of talent. But the Sixers need to win now, and they need space to acquire the players, because Joel Embiid is going to be running out of time. And he's older than his body is probably, it's probably got like 2-3 years left at this level, a couple years left at this level, MVP level, and then it really starts to go downhill fast for a guy like Embiid. So it's going to be, the clock is ticking there. That's why they made that deal. And hey, maybe it works out for the Celtics to get a good role player for second round pick, and he can be a guy that sticks around for a while. But that was the situation. And you got to credit Brad Stevens for taking advantage of a situation like that, because that's what you got to be as a GM, ready to pounce when teams are willing to make potentially painful moves like that. Jackson asks, with so many former Celtics being traded again, what are the odds we could realistically get them back in the offseason? Very low. The trade rules are going to get very restrictive. I think you got to brace yourself for not a lot happening with the Celtics. They probably have a couple big moves left. So I'm not going to say that a former Celtic can't be thrown into a big move. Kind of depends on where that move happens, and depends on the size of that. Like, if the Celtics win a championship this year, I expect them to just run it back. Like, hey, let's try this again. Forget the second apron. Who cares about the second apron? We're just going to roll with it and see if we can do it again. It's a young enough team. Let's capture lightning in the bottle twice. Let's do it. If they don't win a championship, then things get a little dicey and maybe they have to make a bigger move. But the second apron rules make things difficult. So I'm going to say it's unlikely that former Celtics come back this offseason unless the Celtics make a big move. And in that case, that would be, all bets are off at that point. But I don't expect that. Malachi says, strange question, but why did the Nets fire their head coach? I thought Jacque Vaughn was liked by the players and fans of Brooklyn. Yeah, that might be the case, but things have gone south there pretty quickly. Obviously, the final blow was a 50-point loss to Boston. That was bad. But I think Brooklyn is trying to retool, and I'm even wondering if Sean Marks is going to stick around at this point. They may start completely over, and they might want to have somebody new. Or if Sean Marks sticks around and tries to make some big deals, they might want to have like a head coach that can be like a page turner. Like, we're going to start completely new. Jacque Vaughn kind of came in after the Steve Nash thing. We're just gonna palate cleanser, start fresh, new coach, new staff, new identity, new players. Let's roll with that. And I can understand how that would be the case. It's tough when you're trying to rebuild on the fly a little bit and not completely tear down. They're trying to retool a little bit. So they're trying to make it a quick rebuild is kind of where I'm going with it. And they probably just want somebody that's going to help, a new face, a new voice to help kind of facilitate that. You know, different teams in this situation would do different things, and some teams might keep Jacque Vaughn, some teams might not. It's just a matter of what they think is best for the team. I thought Jacque Vaughn was doing a good job with what he had and was seeing the process through. And I think he could have been rewarded for kind of taking the lumps post Steve Nash. But, he's off. He's, looking for a new job, and we'll see where he lands. Coming back, we're going to see if the Celtics can get 5 guys, all 5 starters on all NBA postseason, not all NBA, but postseason awards. We'll talk about some of the little amazing things that I am just completely blown away by with these players. That's all coming up next. Today's show is brought to you by BetterHelp. Sometimes we need the opportunity to get something off of our chest, and it's important to let that out, especially to somebody who's unbiased. And for example, I'm sure Adam Silver would love to just get to somebody and blast the players. I don't know if you heard Adam Silver after the game. He was basically like, hey, you set the record for most points in an All-Star game. Well, congratulations. Very obviously upset. So that's something that he might need to talk through. But you can get some of that stuff off your chest through therapy. You can get into something more serious through therapy. And it's especially important to find someone that you can talk to, that you relate with, that understands you, that gets you. And that's where BetterHelp comes in. It's designed to be entirely online, flexible, suited to your schedule. If you go to betterhelp.com/LockedOnNBA, you get 10% off your first month. And the beauty about BetterHelp, that's HELP, the beauty about BetterHelp is if you don't click with your therapist, you can switch. However, how often you need to, until you find that person you click with that gets you, you can switch. Once you do, then you can start unloading. And I'm telling you, I've benefited from therapy. It's a great thing, no matter if you want to have daily frustrations let out or something deeper, something more long-term. It's all good. So go check it out. BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA. Get 10% off your first month. BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. Thanks for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. Go check out Locked On NBA. I host tomorrow's show, Wednesday, Locked On NBA with Jake Madison. So that's going to be a fun show. We'll look ahead to the second half of the season. That's me doing air quotes. So go check out Locked On NBA, rotating hosts all week long. Michael asks, let me start with Nick's question. Let me start with Nick, who says, is it possible that we can have our starting 5 on all NBA teams postseason? So Jay's on all NBA, Porzingis, White, and Holiday on all defensive teams. Has this ever been done in NBA history where starting 5 makes all postseason teams? I don't recall that ever happening. And I couldn't find the answer as I searched for. I couldn't find it. I don't think it's happened. If it has, it's very rare. Because a lot of times, guys, you don't have that level of talent over the course of so many good defenders that are that good. Is it possible? Well, Tatum's a guaranteed all NBA guy. Jaylen is possibly all NBA, considering how good the Celtics are, and he's having a good season. He might make a second or third team all NBA, could do that. All defense, I think all three could make it. All three should make it. But the problem is Porzingis, actually, because there's 2 all defense teams, and it's, Gobert is going to get one, and they're going to, it's positionless too. So maybe he gets in, and like, it's a new voting system, but Gobert's going to get in. I think Bam Adebayo is going to get in. There's Porzingis could, if they, because it's positionless, that tends to go to the bigs, which means one of the guards might get squeezed out. It's going to be very hard. It's going to be very difficult. But it's possible. So if you say, what are the odds? Well, I don't know. There's a decent enough chance, but that the 2 all NBA teams and the positionless stuff, I think that might squeeze out some of the guards. But the Celtics, no one should be upset if this scenario that Nick spelled out happens, because I think Jaylen and Jayson all NBA and those other 3 guys on all defensive teams, that totally makes sense to me. Michael asks, what are some of the small things that NBA players do, not necessarily spectacular things, that amaze you? He said, I assume you'd have a different answer than me because you played at a high level. He says, for me, I'm impressed by players saving the ball from going out of bounds at the baseline. It goes on to describe, like, and full court passes also. So I get it. Guy saving the ball out of bounds. It is actually an amazing little feat in and of itself. You jump, you're going one way, you grab it, you jump, you spin, you find a guy, you save it. That's very impressive. To me, I feel like the processing power is the most impressive thing to me. It's the mental game to me that's always the most impressive. And by processing power, I mean a guy can come down and read the defense instantly and be like, okay, this is what they're doing. All right, they're doing this. Here's my guys. Here's my setup. Boom, boom, boom. If they set the pick this way, I got this. If they're in drop, or they're hedging, they're doing blah, blah, blah. The ability to read it, react, and have options is amazing to me. The guys that can see a defense and go, I have these options. I'm going to do these couple of things now, but if you play this in the fourth quarter, I'm going to make you think I'm doing the same thing, and I'm going to do this other thing, right? I keep thinking of a Luka Doncic play, and he I wish I could describe it as give it the credit it deserves, but he saw a defense. This happened like last season or 2 seasons ago, where he saw a defense and he made a play where he hit a guy like across the court, and then in the fourth quarter he saw the same setup, and he set up and he was going to make that. He looked like he was going to make a cross court pass, but he had a guy cutting across to the corner, and he made that same motion, and then he just dumped it to the corner, and his guy was wide open. And you're like, man, he had that in his pocket the whole time. Those types of things, the highest level processing brains that can see something, process it in an instant. Think about your computer. Think about a bargain computer that you have it try to load a website, and it takes time. You're like, okay, yeah, download this. The processing power is not very strong, so it takes a while for things to download. Versus the highest level computer that is way too expensive, but when you click on something, boom, it processes. You can game, you can put on Call of Duty, and no lag, no nothing. Boom, you're playing great, right? Versus the other computer, it's like you can't do anything. You're getting killed. It lags, it stops, it freezes. Now, the freezing and lagging and stopping, that's how my brain works. The intense high-level processing power, like the gaming computers that you're like, wow, this thing is fast. That's like LeBron, that's Tatum, that's the highest level first team all NBA guys. That's how fast they see things, how fast they recall things, And when they see it again, they know what their options are. They've got the play, they've got their first option, the counter to the counter, and then they've got like, I'm going to set this guy up. I'm going to do these two things that they don't expect me to do, but I got it in my pocket for the fourth quarter just in case, because I know that you're going to go to it in the fourth quarter because I remember that you did in the fourth quarter the last time. And so if you do it again, I got you. Like that type of stuff amazes me to no end. The guys at the NBA level, I say this is my go-to analogy. I've said it a million times. I'll say it a million more. They are astrophysicists. I am a high school science teacher. So I know science. I understand science. And I can teach it to people like fans like you who you're not fully invested in basketball, right? You like to watch it and you like to see whatever. Like your job isn't to be like knee deep into basketball. So I can teach you some things and you can learn it and it'd be like, oh, it's cool. I know a little extra stuff. Astrophysicists are like way above, right? And so I can get some of what they're saying, but it takes time. So, for example, I can ask a player about a play and they can recall it vividly and talk about all the options. And I have to go back and look at the play and be like, oh, okay, hold on. Let me rewind that. Okay, yeah, I see that. But hold on. Let me rewind that. I go, okay, yeah, this guy did this. So you did this. Oh, I get it. Let me rewind it again. Like if the Celtics had a film session that lasted typically an hour, let's say, and if they invited me in, which, hey, Celtics, if you want to invite me into a team film session, please. If they invited me in, they're not going to after I finish the sentence, and said, you can ask any questions you want. Just stop us. We'll rewind. We'll do whatever you need to do for you to get it. That hour-long film session would last 4 hours. They'd have to bring in food for me to like, by the time we get to the end of it, and I would have to take like a whole notebook full of notes and record it so I can go back to it later. The way they process the game blows me away. Blows me away. Let's end on Todd, who has a couple of questions. First, Brad Stevens gets plenty of flowers for his role as team's president of operations. How much should go to Austin Ainge, team's assistant GM? This applies to Brad and it applies to Joe Mazzulla. When we talk about coaching, we talk about Joe. When we talk about moves, we talk about Brad. But those guys are the faces of entire staffs. So, yes, Austin Ainge. Also, Mike Zarin. Also, like 8 other people in that front office that do a lot of work that are integral to the team's success and the front office's success. Brad Stevens gets all the public flowers, but he is a representative of all of that front office. Just like when I say I like the coaching job that Joe Mazzulla is doing, well, that includes his entire coaching staff, right? Down to the video guys, the entire staff. So everybody, it takes an entire team now in today's NBA to do this stuff. So yes, you're right. It's a good point to include these other names, but we talk about Brad and we talk about Joe. Just know that when we're talking about Brad and Joe, we're talking about Brad and his staff, Joe and his staff. And they are the front-facing people who talk to us all the time. But just know that there are a ton of people that do the jobs behind the scenes for those guys, with those guys that deserve a ton of credit as well. So it's a good point there. And then Todd finally asks, before the tip, Jayson Tatum wiggles each one of his earlobes. He tugs on it. And contrary to popular belief, that's not what I did to pull my ears out of place. That's just how they are. Todd, clearly part of my generation, says the Carol Burnett thing. I do remember the Carol Burnett, tugging her ear. Same reason. Tatum tugs at his earlobes for his grandmother. So when she's at the game, he tugs at the earlobes. He tries to spot her in the crowd. If she's not there, that's his kind of way of saying hi to her. So that's his thing. That's why he does it. So that's it. Appreciate you guys sending me the questions. As always, questions come in to johnkaralis.com/mailbag. That's how I get the questions. Try to answer as much as I can. Try to incorporate them throughout the course of my podcasts throughout the week. So maybe it's not a direct mailbag answer, but if you're listening to enough shows, you might get an answer. Like I got one question about improvements to the NBA All-Star game. Well, that was yesterday's podcast. That was there. I had all of my improvements there. So I answered that question without answering the question directly. So make sure, look, I know that this is me trying to get you to listen to more podcasts, but I do a lot of podcasts and I say a lot of things. So a lot of times you're asking a question. It's something that I may have answered already in the podcast. So make sure you're listening, because you never know when I'm going to actually say something worth remembering. It's possible. It's rare, but it's possible. So make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcast. Would love it if you hopped onto the comment section on the YouTube page, and I'd love it if you shared the podcast, spread the word, tell everybody they should be listening to and watching the Locked On Celtics podcast right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.